This is the first queen in Japanese history, Himiko. According to legend, Himiko was a goddess who brought unfortunate passing. Just a touch from her finger would bring uncontrollable death and destruction to everyone. To stop the disasters, she caused humanity. One of her generals suddenly betrayed her. At the cost of thousands of lives, he was finally able to bind her. Himiko was buried on a deserted island, called Yamatai, located right at the center of the Sea of Monsters. However, later there was a rumor that releasing the queen would grant the power to bring the dead back to life. This information quickly attracted explorers from all over the world. A wealthy merchant passionate about researching supernatural powers, Richard, to bring back his wife who had passed away, discovered a map showing the way to the queen's tomb. So he left his daughter Lara behind and set out on an expedition. But right after arriving on the mysterious island, he vanished without a trace. In the blink of an eye, more than a decade passed, and Lara grew up. She still refused to sign her father's death certificate, and refused to accept the business empire her father left behind, because she had a gut feeling he hadn't passed away. Even though her father left her a huge fortune, strong-willed Lara refused to live off of it without working. To build muscle at the boxing club, she would rather work hard as a food delivery girl on the streets, or join street races to earn money rather than go home and inherit a billion-dollar fortune. Richard, her father's friend and CEO of Chlorofu, Anna, saw that she refused to work seriously and knew this couldn't go on. She advised Lara to quickly sign her father's death certificate. Otherwise, her father's company would be auctioned off. Reluctantly, Lara prepared to sign the will to inherit the assets. But just as she was about to pick up the pen, the lawyer carrying out Richard's wishes took out a strange box. Lara was immediately drawn to the item and completely forgot about signing. She opened the mechanism inside the box herself. Inside, she discovered a photo of her and her father, and on the back was a piece of paper with a riddle written on it, along with a key. Seeing these things, Lara became even more certain her father hadn't passed away. This was definitely a clue her father left behind, so she immediately dropped the idea of signing and returned to the abandoned mansion. Following the instructions on the paper, Lara went to the family tomb. She saw her father's grave was unfinished, and pressed on the first letter. Sure enough, a mechanism opened, revealing a keyhole. Lara inserted the key her father had left behind, then slowly opened a secret door inside the tomb. When Lara stepped inside, she found the room full of treasures that her father had brought back from years of expeditions, along with many of his passports and a mysterious video left behind by her father. In the video, her father said she must never try to find him. He then revealed to Lara the secret about Himiko. He also told Lara that, after watching this video, she must destroy all documents related to Himiko. If these things fell into the wrong hands, the world would face catastrophic destruction. But after watching, Lara did not follow the instructions, because she realized her father's disappearance wasn't that simple. Many documents proved that the mystery of her father's disappearance was connected to the ancient legend of Himiko. She was convinced that her father was trapped on the island mentioned in the notebook, so she decided to go to the legendary deserted island herself to uncover its hidden secrets. Since she hadn't inherited the estate, she had no money to start the journey. Lara had no choice but to sell the protective pendant her father once gave her. It was said to belong to Japanese nobility. The pawnshop owner confirmed it was authentic. Based on the remaining radiation levels, she got the money for the mission. Lara took the documents left by her father to a mysterious country in the east. She went to find Luzin, the captain who had once taken her father on an expedition. Luzin was an addict, drunk for the past 7 years. Lara splashed water to wake him up, but when he woke up, he completely denied it when he saw her contract. It turned out his father's name was also Luzin. The father and son shared the same name. Although the name sounded unlucky, Lara still decided to hire him. However, Luzin didn't want to join, because his father went on that trip and was never seen again. At this point, Lara realized her father and Luzin's father had both gone to an uninhabited island called Yamatai. Then both of them vanished. It was a terrifying island, and Luzin feared he wouldn't return if he went. But after seeing the photo of his father with Richard Croft, and the generous amount of money Lara offered, a man who was flat broke like Luzin finally changed his mind. So, the two set sail, beginning the journey to find the missing father. Along the way, Lara constantly studied the documents her father had left behind. She not only easily cracked the secrets of Himiko, but also discovered that there was a dark organization seeking to exploit Himiko's magical powers, or it was called Trinity. This was an ancient military organization that searched for supernatural power and plotted to control the world. But sometimes, you just have to believe in fate. In the middle of the night, Lara suddenly woke from her sleep. At that moment, she was shocked to realize a violent storm was raging at sea. Thunder roared across the sky, and huge waves surged. Unexpectedly, on her very first voyage, she encountered a terrifying storm. Just as they were about to reach Yamatai, the small boat was immediately lifted by violent waves and crashed into the rocks. The hull was severely damaged. With his rich maritime experience, Luzin quickly decided to abandon ship, but just as he got hold of the lifeboat, a huge wave suddenly hit, sweeping him away. In the emergency, Lara hurriedly gathered all the important documents her father had left. Right as the hull was being torn apart, she bravely jumped into the sea to escape. Adrift at sea, Lara couldn't find Luzin. She had to force herself to swim to shore. The raging waves gradually receded. Eventually, Lara was swept ashore by the water. She hadn't even caught her breath when a group of mysterious people suddenly appeared in the rain. They silently approached her and knocked her unconscious. When Lara regained consciousness, she discovered her father's archaeological journal had disappeared. It turned out it had been taken by a brutal man. Power was a low-ranking leader in the Trinity organization. 7 years ago, he had followed Lara's father to this island. His goal was to steal secrets from Himiko's tomb. Unexpectedly, her father suddenly went missing. Since then, he and his mercenary team had captured countless shipwrecked fishermen who drifted here, then forced them into hard labor, digging for the tomb on the island. The excavation had lasted for 7 years. Yet, until now, the exact location of the tomb was still unknown. Unexpectedly, after just one night's sleep, Lara had brought the notebook with her to the island, unintentionally handing it over right when he needed it most. To show his gratitude, he sent Lara, who was now of no use to him, to the excavation site to carry stones, turning her into one of the slaves, digging together to find the entrance to the queen's tomb on the island. It was at this moment that Lara discovered Luzin was still alive, and just like her, had been forced into hard labor. After thoroughly studying the notebook, Power immediately ordered everyone to pack up and relocate the excavation camp. On the way, Luzin told Lara that his father had been killed by Power, and her father had escaped back then. But to this day, his whereabouts remain unknown. The two discussed a plan and decided to look for a chance to escape together. Using the notebook, they quickly determined the exact location of the tomb, then immediately began large-scale digging and stone transportation. However, during the excavation process, a worker, due to poor health, couldn't go on, was cold-bloodedly shot on the spot by him and passed away. Luzin saw they couldn't keep enduring such oppression, so he took advantage of a guard's carelessness, grabbed a shovel, and suddenly attacked a mercenary, then told Lara to use the chaos to escape. Lara didn't hesitate, fleeing in panic. But not far ahead, other guards noticed her. They immediately opened fire in her direction. Lara used the rocky terrain for cover, dodging the hail of bullets from the machine guns. Seeing this, Luzin swung his shovel, knocking down each guard and breaking the zipper cord. Lara quickly seized the chance and fled into the forest. But the guards immediately chased after her closely. To help her escape, Luzin chose to stay behind and block the enemy. As a result, he was shot down on the spot by Power. At that moment, Lara ran into a dead end. What fate would she have to face now? How much survival instinct can a woman in a life-or-death situation unleash? To escape the pursuit, Lara didn't hesitate. Anne stepped onto a single log bridge, but after just a few steps, the enemies behind hurriedly opened fire. In panic, she lost her balance and fell straight down a cliff hundreds of meters deep, then plunged into the raging river below. The soldiers above kept firing wildly down, but it was already too late. They could only grit their teeth in frustration. With her hands tied, Lara couldn't fully control her body. She could only let the current drag her downstream. She struggled to surface, trying to reach the cliffs on either side, but the raging current gave her no chance to save herself. Worse still, the end of the river led to a waterfall hundreds of meters high. Luckily, a crashed bomber was stuck right at the edge of the cliff. The current grew stronger, and Lara found a chance to grab the plane wreckage. But the current was too strong and dragged her away again. She was about to fall off the cliff, but with her superior skills, Lara managed to grab the plane wing in time. Beneath the wing was a deep, bottomless cliff. If she fell, her chances of survival would be nearly zero. Looking down at the depth, Lara trembled with fear. She knew fear wouldn't help her now, but her hands were tied tightly with rope. Only a single piece of rusted metal held her up. What a precarious situation. She took a deep breath, clenched her hands, and made a pulling motion. Her right leg pushed up with all its strength. She climbed up and collapsed exhausted on the airplane wing. Before she could even rest, the airplane wing started creaking again. Unable to withstand Lara's modest 0.8-ton weight, the airplane wing began to snap off. Lara immediately sat up straight. She held her breath and carefully stood up, but the wing beneath her feet was about to collapse. There was no time left for hesitation. She summoned all her strength and risked a dash toward the airplane body. The moment the airplane wing fell, she jumped up and tightly grabbed the plane's frame, watching the wing break off and vanish into the waterfall. Lara breathed a sigh of relief for narrowly escaping death. Then, with incredible arm strength, she slowly climbed into the cockpit. The intense exertion left her legs aching and her body fatigued. After adjusting herself slightly, she immediately spotted a protruding piece of metal. She approached it and used it to rub against the rope on her hands. However, Lara's actions disrupted the balance that had lasted 300 years within the airplane. Unbelievably, the plane body began shaking and sliding toward the deep waterfall. Every move Lara made filled onlookers with anxiety for her. Luckily, at the last second, she cut the rope from her hands, then quickly grabbed the rear shield of the plane. But the danger wasn't over yet. The plane body broke loose and plunged downward nose first. However, luckily it got wedged between the cliffs. Lara had never felt her fate to be so fortunate. She stood stunned, almost bursting into laughter. But just as she was about to stand up, the metal plate beneath her creaked loudly. This time, Lara couldn't avoid it. However, with a fierce will to survive, she found a glimmer of hope. Turning around, she spotted an old parachute, her only chance at survival. Immediately, she reached out to grab it, but sadly, her arm was too short, just a bit out of reach. Suddenly, she lunged and grabbed the parachute, but at the same time, she lost her footing and fell into the bottomless abyss. Fortunately, she managed to open the parachute in time and began gliding down. Although slightly torn, it still helped slow her descent. After a struggle, the parachute dropped into the forest. Now it was a life-or-death gamble. The dense jungle could easily turn her into a walking pincushion. After a rough tumble, Lara finally landed successfully. She braced herself, struggling to move. A sharp pain in her stomach made Lara cry out. Turns out fate wasn't being too cruel to her, until a sharp tree branch stabbed into her stomach. Fortunately, she managed to pull it out without serious harm. Right then, Lara heard the sound of waves crashing from afar. As she stepped out of the forest and reached the shore, she was shocked to realize she had arrived at the legendary island Queen Himiko. At night, the forest became eerily silent. While Lara was fast asleep, she was suddenly awakened by footsteps. Sensing danger, Lara immediately moved, but was still caught by the enemy. The man choked her tightly, cutting off her breath. She bit his arm hard, forcing him to scream and throw her away. Lara had learned freestyle combat and instantly grappled with him. At first, Lara was no match for him, but in the end, thanks to her protagonist's luck, he overpowered him. While Lara gasped for air, a scruffy man in black appeared not far away. Seeing his suspicious behavior, Lara immediately gave chase. When she climbed into a cave atop the mountain, the scene before her left Lara stunned, because the man standing before her was the father who had been missing for years. Having lived on the island for 7 years, at first, Richard thought the daughter he saw was just a hallucination, until Lara greeted him in their special way. Only then did he realize the girl standing before him was truly his daughter. After the father and daughter recognized each other, Richard used his special medical skills to heal Lara's wounds. As they talked, Richard revealed he didn't return to Lara because he feared she would get hurt too, because he was the only one who knew the location of Himiko's tomb, and her curse could bring great disaster to the world. To prevent Trinity from finding the tomb, he had spent years on the run, faking his own passing. Without his documents, Trinity could never locate the tomb. Moreover, those documents had now been burned by Lara. Hearing this, Lara felt a bit embarrassed, because she had actually brought the documents here herself. Looking into Lara's evasive eyes, Richard immediately understood everything. He burst into anger, his face twisted with rage. He had wandered for 7 years, enduring wind and rain, doing everything to fool them, and now it was all a joke. It seemed he had underestimated his daughter's bravery. But Lara had no interest in the legend of Himiko. She only wanted to leave the island with her father, but the place was desolate and couldn't contact the outside world. Only Power had a satellite phone. We can take it from him. Richard thought it was too difficult, because after all, Power had a mercenary team guarding the camp. Since things had reached this point, Lara no longer cared about her father's advice. She quickly grabbed her bow and rushed out, deciding to return to the excavation site. First, she would rescue the laborers there, because Power, having gained accurate info about the tomb, had finally found its entrance. Just one step away from the goal, but blocked by a special metal door. The design couldn't be opened. He was left helpless. He hurriedly used the satellite phone to call the organization, requesting a helicopter for support. At that moment, Lara quietly arrived at the camp and found the injured Luzin. With a quick glance, an arrow flew through the air and took down a guard. She rescued Luzin and the other slaves, then rallied them to escape together. Even though they were cautious, nearby guards still noticed. They immediately raised their guns and opened fire on everyone. The continuous gunfire caught the attention of the guards in Power's tent. Luzin had to shield his companions and started running. Meanwhile, Lara chose to stay behind to hold off the enemies. She transformed into a jungle wanderer, clearing out anyone in her way as she ran. As Lara was about to grab the satellite phone and escape, she discovered that her father had climbed up to the tomb entrance. Seeing the tomb had been found, Richard felt a surge of mixed emotions inside. At that moment, Power, who had been waiting, appeared behind him. To open the 1,000-year-old tomb, they had to decode a rotating lock mechanism on the door. Clearly, with Power's intellect, he could never unlock this code in his lifetime. So, the experienced Richard was brought before him. But Richard refused. Seeing his stubbornness, Power ordered his men to shoot him. Lara quickly shot an arrow through the air and took him down. She then forced Power to release her father, or she would shoot him. But his gun was also aimed at her father, preparing for a deadly standoff. Lara feared that if Power was hit, he'd pull the trigger and take her father's life. So she hesitated, not daring to act. So what should she do in such a situation? Richard told his daughter not to worry about him and to shoot the arrow. If sacrificing himself could save thousands, it would be worth it. After weighing the pros and cons, Lara made her choice. I'm sorry. No, I didn't endure countless hardships just to watch you leave me now. Lara lowered her bow and agreed with Power to open the ancient tomb door. It was the resting place of Queen Himiko, who passed away thousands of years ago. Legend says she possessed terrifying dark powers. To take her remains, an evil organization had used Lara's father's life to force her into opening the tomb. But when faced with the strange rolling mechanism before her, even Lara, who had overcome countless challenges, was momentarily at a loss. At that moment, she suddenly remembered the lock that her father had once left her, its design identical to the mechanism here. Immediately, everything became clear. Lara climbed up the tomb's door, where Queen Himiko was buried. She compared it to the mechanical lock, then forcefully turned the rollers on the door. She turned it this way, then that, continuously adjusting the rotating cylinders. Finally, she gently turned the bottom roller. The next second, the sound of mechanisms engaging rang out. The 1,000-year-old tomb officially opened. A massive cave entrance appeared before them, but inside was a bottomless abyss. Lara secured a safety rope and jumped down, becoming the guide for the tomb raiders. Everyone followed her into the tomb. They discovered human remains scattered everywhere. Suddenly, a cold wind blew directly into their faces. Everyone shivered from the chill running down their spines. She's still breathing. Or perhaps it was just a change in air pressure. Power forced Lara to lead the way. But they hadn't gone far when Lara stepped on a hidden trap. What they didn't expect was that when it triggered, the ones killed were the mercenaries behind her, while those in front remained safe. Turns out, the trap wasn't meant to stop people from entering, but from leaving. It seems Himiko didn't want anyone to survive and escape this place. At that moment, Lara noticed a broken bridge ahead. Power lit a flare and tossed it downward. To their surprise, below were countless white skeletons. Clearly, this tomb was far more dangerous than they had imagined. Yet none of this could stop Power's ambition. They set up a ladder and safely crossed the soul chasm to reach the other side. The group continued deeper into the heart of the tomb. This made Lara feel like something wasn't right. The queen perished. Daylight turned to darkness. Only death can bring forth life. Just then, another trap was triggered. 2 giant stone doors suddenly slammed shut. The floor began to collapse rapidly. Through the gaps, they could clearly see the bottomless pit below. Seeing the situation, Lara risked her life. She quickly rushed to the stone door and found a keyhole on it. This might be the key to stopping the mechanism. Richard immediately pulled a key from a nearby prayer wheel. Lara caught the key her father tossed to her and inserted it into the keyhole, but nothing happened. Maybe the color wasn't correct. The others quickly searched for different colored keys and threw them to Lara. She tried each one, but the result was the same, completely ineffective. Meanwhile, the ground continued collapsing bit by bit. They were running out of space to stand on. Suddenly, Lara remembered the inscription she had seen earlier when they entered. The queen perished, turning daylight into darkness. Only death can bring forth life. That line must be the solution to this mechanism. Lara suddenly recalled a familiar fact. Emergency exits usually use green lights. The color of life must be green. But among all the keys, there wasn't a single green one. Suddenly, Lara had a realization. Yellow and blue combined together make green. So she used 2 keys, one yellow, one blue, and inserted them at the same time. Sure enough, the mechanism stopped just in time, and the large door successfully opened. You've always been the pride of our family. All right, let's keep going. Our great pride, the floor, it's gone. After successfully passing this test, everyone entered the Hall of 1,000 Corpses. Here lie 368 maidens buried with the queen, so they could continue serving her in the afterlife. At the end of the main path was Queen Himiko's underground palace. Her coffin was placed there. Richard said, the queen was a disaster to mankind. But Power couldn't care less about Richard's warning. He stubbornly ordered his men to open the coffin lid. When the lid was opened, a perfectly preserved body appeared before them. The woman wore a strange outfit. Her forehead was engraved with bizarre symbols. This was Queen Himiko. Suddenly, when her body was exposed to air, it immediately oxidized and turned into a dried-up corpse within seconds. The legendary resurrection didn't happen at all. Lara felt something wasn't right. She looked at the murals depicting that. Himiko voluntarily buried herself on this remote island, not because of betrayal from her servants. Power didn't care about that truth at all. He impatiently ordered his men to prepare to bring the corpse back for research. Suddenly, the corpse sat up, startling everyone. A chill ran down their spines. It turned out there was a mechanism inside the coffin. This was a trick often used by nobles in the past after burial, to scare off tomb raiders. When the men tried to move the body again, he reached out and suddenly noticed his arm touching. The body was quickly decaying and turning black. Recalling the murals she saw earlier, Lara immediately understood the secret behind it. It turns out the seeds Himiko spread weren't supernatural powers, but a contagious disease she carried. A disease transmitted through contact. Because Himiko had antibodies, she wasn't affected herself. But when others were exposed to the disease, they rotted and passed away. That's why she was seen as someone practicing dark magic, meaning Himiko was actually an asymptomatic super spreader. Combined with the earlier riddle, the queen perished, turning daylight into darkness. Only death brings forth life. It seems Himiko sacrificed herself to save the world from the virus. So, she willingly sealed herself inside the tomb on a deserted island. As Lara pondered, the man infected by the virus turned into a lifeless zombie. Seeing this, Power had no choice but to shoot him. After the chaos, his eyes lit up. The Trinity organization wanted to harness Himiko's destructive power. Richard warned Power not to take the disease outside. Otherwise, countless people would lose their lives. However, Power didn't care about his warning. He just wanted to complete the mission and get back home. After all, he was just a hired hand. Then he carefully used pliers to remove a finger from the corpse and gently placed it in a plastic bag. Both father and daughter knew this was extremely dangerous. After exchanging a glance, Lara suddenly grabbed an iron pick nearby to strike back. Richard used the chaos to grab a fallen weapon and shot Power in the leg. Then the two began exchanging gunfire. Amid the chaos, Lara ran out to distract the last mercenary. Power's gun quickly ran out of bullets. It was the perfect chance to take him down. Unexpectedly, the soldier behind him wasn't fully gone yet. Because he had just touched the corpse, he turned into a zombie and charged at Richard. Although Richard quickly ended the fight, he couldn't avoid being infected. At that moment, Lara was hiding in the Hall of 1,000 Corpses. The sound of brittle bones breaking immediately drew the mercenary's attention. He crawled into the narrow gap and violently dragged Lara out, breaking stacked stone slabs. Lara had no way out. Spotting a mechanism on the floor, she stepped on it without hesitation. Once again, she had to bet her life. A massive gear covered in spikes rolled down like a waterfall. Lara used the trap's pattern to escape the danger successfully. When she turned back, Power had taken the chance to escape. She discovered her father's body had started to fester. Richard was fully aware of his condition. He decided to stay behind and blow up the tomb, and told Lara to chase after Power to stop the plague from spreading outside. Even though she knew her father wouldn't live much longer, he still struck Lara with a heavy blow. But now, an important mission was waiting for her to complete. After father and daughter shared a final kiss, Lara risked everything to run toward the exit and fulfill her father's last wish. Before long, she caught up to Power fleeing, leaping to grab onto the ladder tightly. After climbing up, she unleashed a flurry of stunning blows, knocking him flat to the ground. This guy usually only gave orders, but no one expected he'd be so formidable in a real fight. Lara was constantly attacked fiercely by her opponent. Pow landed a powerful hit to her vulnerable spot, causing Lara pain, but she still braced herself to fight back fiercely. The two struggled, attacking back and forth relentlessly. In short, both were injured, and neither had the upper hand. To ensure absolute safety, Lara had to quickly destroy the only escape route. Power was extremely furious. Grabbing a climbing axe, he charged at Lara in a frenzy. After an incredibly fierce life-or-death battle, at this point, Lara was completely outmatched, pinned down by Power, unable to move. Just when he was about to take her life, at that critical moment, Lara's father, with his last bit of awareness, pulled the pin. A violent shockwave swept through the entire ancient tomb. Power was also stunned by the impact. Lara took the opportunity to launch a surprise counterattack. Catching him off guard, she landed a direct blow to his throat. She quickly got up and snatched the remaining half of Himiko's finger, and forcefully shoved it into his mouth. Power widened his eyes in shock, and his body immediately began to mutate. However, before he could fully transform, Lara delivered a decisive kick, knocking him into the pit of bones. The ancient 1,000-year-old tomb couldn't withstand the shockwave from the explosion and was about to completely collapse. If she didn't leave immediately, she would be buried along with the tomb. Lara picked up the climbing axe and charged forward. Using all her strength, she made a powerful leap across the life-or-death chasm. Lara unleashed incredible arm strength. Thanks to the climbing axe, she climbed up in a single breath. Then she dashed forward like mad. Huge rocks kept falling all around her, making viewers sweat from worry. Lara rushed toward the exit at breakneck speed. With a spectacular leap, she grabbed the pulley rope and narrowly escaped death. Lu Ren was already waiting outside to rescue her from the tomb. After that, they seized the helicopter that Power had previously called and left the deserted island. When Lara returned to London, she didn't hesitate and immediately signed the will to officially inherit the multi-billion fortune. Because she had confirmed that her father had truly passed away, she decided to continue entrusting Anna with managing the company's daily operation. While reviewing the asset list, Lara discovered a subsidiary called Pano. She remembered, on the deserted island, all the supplies for Power's group had been provided by this very company. Clearly, the Trinity organization had infiltrated the family corporation. They had even planted spies everywhere. This evil organization had always been aggressively hunting for a super virus, capable of destroying the world in pursuit of global domination. Next, Lara would begin purging the organization from within.